Ugochi spent the next few days hiding in a secluded termite mound shelter, tending to the madman's needs and slowly trying to coax out any coherent words while he thrashed and rambled through bizarre deliriums. It was the hot season of the year when Ugochi pulled her headscarf over her face as their bus rattled down the dirt road. She could see a ragged figure shuffling along the roadside, rocking back and forth while muttering gibberish. As they grew closer, one of the other passengers sneered. "Just a mad beggar. Pay him no mind." But Ugochi felt compelled to look closer at the wild-haired, bearded man with his tattered robe. When their eyes met, she was stunned by the intense gleam behind his apparent madness. There was something hauntingly familiar about his haunted gaze. "You there. Move aside, you fool," the bus driver bellowed out the window. The madman didn't react, continuing his strange mutterings in a language no one could understand. Ugochi's chest tightened as they prepared to veer around him. On an impulse, she grabbed a couple of stale bread rolls and tossed them toward the man. He immediately fell silent, staring at the parcels in wonder. "Now you're just encouraging the madman," the driver chided. But Ugochi ignored him, mesmerized by the emotion playing across the vagrant's weathered features. "Entachi," he uttered hoarsely, blinking in apparent recognition at the bread. "Entachi, ulcer." With surprising swiftness, the madman snatched up the rolls and began devouring them, shaking his head and cackling between ecstatic bites. Ugochi's heart broke seeing him relish such meager scraps. Before she knew it, they had driven on, but she couldn't stop thinking about his haunting eyes. Over the following weeks, Ugochi found any excuses to traverse the rural backroads, searching for any sign of the mysterious madman. She pondered endlessly about what truth could lie behind those penetrating eyes and bizarre ramblings. At last, arriving at their village outside the city, she seized her chance to seek him out alone. The others warned her not to roam, calling her foolish for chasing after deranged beggars. But Ugochi didn't care. She made her way down the dirt path until she finally spotted him hunched under a baobab tree, gnawing on roots and leaves. At first, the madman didn't seem to notice Ugochi's approach, his matted hair shaking as he mumbled feverishly. But then he suddenly froze, his wild eyes snapping up to meet hers. Ugochi's breath caught as an inexplicable sense of recognition washed over her. "Endways," he whispered, rising unsteadily. "Find the endways." "I don't understand," Ugochi replied gently. "But I knew I had to find you again." The vagrant blinked, seeming to fully take in her presence now. A trembling hand reached out to caress her face with impossible tenderness. Something inside Ugochi's soul stirred, as if remembering an ancient, cherished bond. From that day on, Ugochi brought the madman food and water whenever she could and simply sat in his presence, listening to his incomprehensible chants and maniacal laughter. Sometimes he would reach out and clutch her hands fiercely, staring deep into her eyes while mumbling urgently. Despite the strange behavior, Ugochi felt no fear, only an overwhelming need to unlock the mystery surrounding this wild soul. There was something achingly noble still burning inside him. One scorching day, Ugochi watched as the madman crawled into their village camp, begging for any scraps to eat or drink. That's when she noticed a strange pattern of scars peeking out from the tears in his robe. She gasped as she made out an intricate symbol hidden amid the ridge of marks. It was the emblem of the ancient Alais kings, the same one carved into the tribal elders' ceremonial staffs. With trembling hands, Ugochi began clearing away the caked dirt and matted hair covering the man's body. To her astonishment, more and more ornate scars emerged, forming entire passages of text she couldn't read but knew to be the traditional Alais royal tongue. She now knew this man was more than just a madman. He carried the secret history of the legendary Alais dynasties etched across his very flesh. But what cataclysmic force could have reduced such a once noble figure to a discarded, broken husk? That night, Ugochi did something drastic. She waited for all the villagers to go to bed. Once they were all asleep, she emerged and silently dragged the limp madman out beyond the brush surrounding the village. Ugochi spent the next few days hiding in a secluded termite mound shelter, tending to the madman's needs and slowly trying to coax out any coherent words while he thrashed and rambled through bizarre deliriums. Sometimes he would snap into startling bouts of unexpected clarity, seizing her hands and begging with anguished urgency, "Save me from the venom of the serpent lord." But just as quickly, the lucid moments would pass, and he would descend back into the pit of murmured madness. Ugochi refused to give up, soothing his feverish brow while studying every scar etched across his body. She would solve this enigma and restore the lost soul buried within. Then one night during a raging thunderstorm, it finally happened. The madman startled awake as if from a trance, his eyes wide and locking onto Ugochi's eyes. "You," he croaked in the royal Alai's language. "You have remained faithful despite my unspeakable condition. Please release me from this endless torment." Ugochi stared in disbelief as the man before her of obvious noble heritage began recounting in disturbing detail the treachery that had reduced him to this state. He spoke of the vile serpent cult that had seized control of his kingdom through dark rituals, poisoning and cursing the entire royal family one by one. The former prince recalled how just before the ritual that would strip his soul, he used an ancient blood rite to inscribe his entire life across his body. That way a piece of his true self would be preserved, waiting to be discovered and freed. Only a woman pure of heart could look past the madness and see the truth seared into his very being. By the storm's end, Ugochi had heard the prince's incredible tale in full. She pulled him into an embrace, tears in her eyes. "I will walk through the very fires of hell to break your curse, my prince. This I vow." And so began their quest to track down the secret serpent cult and confront the dark source of the curse. Ugochi procured tribal antidotes to temporarily subdue the creeping madness within the former prince's mind. With his newfound clarity, they gathered a small group of Leah's most loyal friends to infiltrate the cult's rumored underground lair. The battles that followed were too intense to recount, filled with chanting, poisoned blades, and hallucinogenic powders. There were several times when Ugochi feared all was lost, but she refused to abandon the prince who had suffered so unimaginable a fate. In the end, their final desperate gambit led to the cult leader's demise and shattered the ancient curse's power forever. As the prince underwent intense spiritual healing rituals, Ugochi looked on proudly as the rightful heir to the Lunda throne was restored at last. Once cleansed of the last vestiges of madness, the prince emerged reborn and met Ugochi's adoring gaze. "Through your love's devotion, I have been freed from the serpent's merciless coils of insanity," he declared. He swept Ugochi into his powerful embrace. "And now I take you as my wife and queen, the one who saw through my anguished delusions to the man I was born to be." Their wedding celebration shook the entire village, combining ancient rituals of the Alai's people with modern ceremonies. It marked the dawning of the lost prince retaking his rightful place after so many generations. But more importantly for Ugochi, it meant committing forever to the courageous prince whose haunted, fragmented mind she had pieced back together through steadfast devotion. Some villagers still whispered that Ugochi was a fool for wedding the man once known as the roadside madman. But all she saw was an indomitable spirit that had endured the most horrific of curses, only to be reborn by the unstoppable power of true love.
Thanks for watching. Kindly subscribe to our channel for even better stories to come, and feel free to drop your comments on the story. We will be responding to all your comments. We look forward to seeing you in our next video. Bye bye.